BigCountryPreps.com. I'm Evan Wren, and this is the Countdown to Two-A-Days series. Our daily look at an area football team and the key questions we'll be answering about that team in our upcoming August 20th preseason preview here at Big Country Preps. I'm with my partner, Dan Youngblood, via Zoom. And tonight, Dan, we're talking about the Graham Steers.
Yeah, this is a Graham team that suffered enormous graduation losses from last year's 12-2 squad. Graduated 26 of their 43 lettermen, returned just one offensive and three defensive starters, so a ton of turnover this year. But this has been a program that's experienced a ton of success in recent years. Is just sustained a level of play that not many programs can boast. So this is going to be an opportunity for Coach McChristian to prove, not terribly unlike the conversation we had with Brock yesterday, that Graham is a reload program. This is an opportunity for them to get a lot of new faces in there and to try to keep the train rolling. Obviously, they're going to have some big questions to answer if they hope to do that, and we'll talk about those here in just a few minutes.
Before we do that, I want to remind you folks to please hit the subscribe button on YouTube. It's free. And then after that, please hit that little bell and you'll get notifications each and every time that Big Country Preps posts a video there. And with that, Dan, it is time to jump into some questions about the Graham Steers of 2025. What is your first question?
I think my first one is it kind of ties in what I was talking about earlier is just how far can this program's culture, how far can this program's tradition carry it in 2025? I think that's going to be a big key because they do have just so many holes to fill. They're talking about 10 new starters on offense, 8 new starters on defense, and they're going to be relying on call-ups from a 4-4 JV team. So this is I think Graham has proven that you expect them to be a winning program. You expect them to field good, competitive, tough teams, and I would expect that to continue. But my question is with all that they lost to graduation, that was such a special senior class across so many different sports. With all that they lost, can they avoid the other R word? Can they avoid a rebuilding season in 2025? I think that they're hoping to compete at the top of that district with Brock as they did last year. They're going to have a bone to pick with Brock after being unexpectedly eliminated by them in the playoffs last year. But with all that they lost, can they compete at that level? Can they reload and continue to put out a product that we've kind of grown to expect from this program?
All right, the one saving grace, Dan, that Graham has this year, despite all these losses, and it's a huge amount of losses, granted, uh, they're still huge. I mean, this football team has got some big kids up front, and that might be their one saving grace to give them some hope to produce another quality football team this year. They have Tyson Louder. He's 6'4", 315 pounds, and he is only a junior. They have Brennan Stawbridge. He's 6'1", he's 300 pounds. And then they've got McCray Reese, 5'11", 285. They're going to be able to get a push up front. And if you get a push up front, you should be able to run the football and take pressure off these young, these young skill players. And I think they're going to get about as far as this young offensive line takes them. And with size like that, they should be able to get a push, create some space, keep that clock running, and be productive. So we'll see as long as they stay healthy.
That's one thing that's going to be interesting to see. They graduated, obviously, a really special dual threat quarterback in Ty Thompson. They're expecting another dual threat quarterback this year in senior Jace Gill, who played receiver for him last year, to move into there. So I'm interested to see what that running game looks like with that big offensive line. The last question I have is on the defensive side, and it's about rebuilding basically their entire front, the entire front of that defense that they run, the 3-3 defense. They return a good nucleus back in their secondary with Cooper Corley, Isaiah Flores, Jordan Alexander, a lot of kids that got a lot of playing time last year for them in that secondary. Santiago Zamora is another one. But you're talking about rebuilding your entire defensive line. You're talking about a brand new core of linebackers. I'm just interested to see what that group looks like, considering how good that defense was a year ago. You're talking about maybe one of the best, 4A defenses I've seen in the time that I've been covering high school sports. This is a team that had 8 shutouts last year. They shut out 8 opponents in a 14 game schedule. So just a tremendous, tremendous defense. But a lot of those guys, a lot of the principal characters that were responsible for that, obviously have graduated with just like that again, just a generational senior class for this program. So my question is, who's going to step into those roles? Who's going to fill those gaps? Obviously, they've got some talent back. One guy to take a look at, Trip Mahaney, a guy who played catcher for their baseball team, was a linebacker who wasn't able to play last year. He's coming back, and he's going to probably be a leader of that defense. But who are going to be the other guys? Who's going to fill in around him on the defensive front and at that linebacker core? Because I do think that this secondary has a chance to be very good again, maybe even better than last year. If they can, put together a solid front in front of them, I would expect this to be a really quality defensive team again.
All right, and with that, we're going to take a quick look at Graham's schedule for 2025. But before we do that, we need to thank a few of our sponsors. Beginning with For the Love of the Game Broadcasting and our old friend Terry Slavens, owner of K-Lakes 93.5 FM out of Brackenridge, 97.7 FM KATX out of Eastland, Classic Country AM 1330 out of Graham, 94.7 FM KWKQ out of Graham, KROO 1430 AM out of Bracken, KWBY 98.5 FM out of Ranger. That is For the Love of the Game Broadcasting. Also, Rob Durham, sales consultant at Bear Chevrolet Buick Cadillac up in Breckenridge. If you're in the market for a new vehicle or a used vehicle, call Rob. He's one of the nicest guys you'll ever want to meet. Give him a shout at 254 559 2266. That's Rob Durham up at Bear Chevrolet Buick Cadillac in Breckenridge. And finally, Cavalry Resources and Construction, located up in Breckenridge, serving the entire big country, offering custom standing seam roofing made on location and all commercial roofing applications. Give Kobe Walker a shout at 254 246 5546. That is Cavalry Resources and Construction in Breckenridge. All right, and with that, it's time to take a peek at Graham's schedule for 2025. We'll start off with the non-district portion. And Dan, this is a challenging non-district portion for Graham, as it was last year. September the 29th will be the season opener at Midland Christian. That is a notoriously difficult private school to be playing. Their home opener will be on September 5th at home against Springtown, followed by another home date with a difficult Whitesboro team on the 12th. A road date at Decatur, another toughie on September 19th, and then Lake Worth will come into Graham on September 26th before jumping into the open date. And man, I'm telling you, uh, four of those games are going to be difficult. Considering the losses that Graham faced, it's going to be a tough row for them
Yeah,
to
definitely.
challenge, but they'll grow up fast.
Yeah, and that'll be good for them. But definitely a challenging non-district slate there. They open district October 10th with a road date at Burke Burnett before hosting Bridgeport on the 17th of October. They then play back-to-back road games at Mineral Wells and at Brock on the 24th and 31st of October respectively, before closing out the regular season November 7th at home against Saginaw Eagle Mountain. So this is an interesting district. We talked about this with the during the Brock look ahead yesterday. A lot of teams did you expect to be competing at the top of this district have suffered heavy graduation losses. So it kind of opens things up maybe a little bit, but a good solid schedule for Graham, and I'm interested to see how they handle it.
All right, game of the year or games of the year for Graham. I'll go ahead and step aside, let you go first on this one.
I think despite everything, all the new faces, all the graduation losses that they've experienced, I think Graham is still hoping to compete for a district championship this year, just because that's the culture of this program, that's the expectation of this program. So I'm going to go ahead and take on their expectations, and I'm going to circle that game, that Halloween night game at Brock, as the game of the year for Graham. I think not only is that one probably from on a consensus basis going to be looked at as the game for the district championship in this league. I think the fact that that was a rematch in the playoffs last year and the team that knocked them out of the playoffs and ended a season that I think Graham thought had an opportunity to end in Arlington. I think that's going to be one they're going to have circled as well. So I'm going to say that game at Brock on October 31st is the game of the year for the Steers.
I agree with you if Graham takes care of business at Mineral Wells on the 24th of October. Graham has suffered some big losses, and Mineral Wells is a team that's coming back and thinks it's going to be taking a step forward this year. They think they're going to be better. That game's on the road, and I think if Graham beats Mineral Wells, that's the game that really establishes them as the likely number two seed in district with a shot at knocking off Brock and winning it all, winning the district. But it all it that game at Mineral Wells really is really shapes up as a big one. So I think there's two games there to look at. That stretch of road games at Mineral Wells and at Brock is going to be probably the two most crucial games for Graham's season this year.
Yeah, and I think the fact that that Mineral Wells game comes right before that Brock game makes it a trap game potentially as well. That
You're
you
right.
don't want the team looking ahead to that Brock game. I think it probably helps them that both those games are on the road. I think that probably does kind of snap your focus a little bit into place. I think if one of those were a home game, you might worry maybe a little bit more about complacency kind of creeping in. But yeah, it's gonna be an interesting schedule, and I think those two games are gonna tell us a lot about this Graham team one way or another. We're gonna find out whether this is a Graham team that's capable of competing for a district championship or not, and it's gonna be fun to watch.
But really sets up the possible trap game is the fact that they'll likely go into Mineral Wells favored, and who knows by how much, but you go into that game favored, and then you've got Brock next. It'll be a mental challenge to try and take care of business at
And,
that night. So that game's
and
crucial, really.
and there's a chance as well that you're gonna be going into that Mineral Wells game off a couple of pretty comfortable wins to open district too. So you don't want to get too confident. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
All right. With that, it's about time to wrap up this edition of the Countdown to Two-A-Days series, the Graham Steers. But before we do that, we want to remind you, August 20th is the big day here at Big Country Preps. That's the day we release our annual preseason football preview, the most comprehensive look at area football from any media source available, either in our area or statewide for that matter. We will have previews of all the 11-man football teams that we cover, including a six-man preview. We will have stats, standings, district predictions. We will have opinion pieces, columns. We will have more than 40 player features to take a peek at. It's a ton of material. It's a lot to read, but it's well worth it. Join us August 20th.
In the meantime, we thank you for joining us for this episode of our Countdown to Two-A-Days series and hope that you'll be back tomorrow when we do take a look at those Mineral Wells Rams here at BigCountryPreps.com.